Jon Jones has won the most title fights in UFC history with 14, but will be competing at heavyweight for the first time in his career, facing former interim UFC heavyweight champ Ciryl Gane. His only loss was a title unification bout with then heavyweight champ Francis Ngannou last January. Now on Friday, Gane hit the scale at 247.5 pounds, while Jones weighed in at 248, some 40 pounds more than he would weigh in for a light heavyweight title fight. Oh, yeah. Welcome in, CBS Sports combat analyst and co-host of the award-winning Morning Kombat, Brian Campbell. Jon Jones returning to the octagon for the first time in 3 years and fighting for the vacant title in his heavyweight debut. BC, how might the inactivity and the move up in weight class impact Jon Jones?
Those are the two biggest questions facing Jones without question. Really, you got to ask yourself, is Ciryl Gane, of the available heavyweight elite names that Jon could have returned against? I'm talking about former champions in Stipe Miocic and Francis Ngannou also in this conversation. Is Ciryl Gane the best case scenario for Jon style-wise or the worst? A lot of that comes down to whether he can institute the wrestling dominance that at times early in his career he's been able to do, and that on paper he would have an advantage over Ciryl Gane. So it comes down to Jon Jones taking this big frame in the 3 years off and erasing them, proving that he's got the same level of 5-round championship cardio and doing what Jon Jones does. The question is that a little bit more easier said than done? Yes, in UFC history in the past, we've seen Georges St. Pierre come back from a 5-round layoff, move up in weight, and win another world championship. The greats can do it, and there's really nobody in history greater than Jon Jones. But the gap between two divisions in the UFC weight-wise is never larger than it is between light heavyweight 205 pounds and heavyweight with the max weight of 265. We saw Jon Jones come in here in the 240s. We know he said this week it's not a bodybuilding contest. He's not cut and ripped with abs like he was at light heavyweight, but he still has to prove something large on Saturday against Gane. Can he carry that heavy frame? Can he be the same championship level elite fighter? A lot to ask of a guy who sat out for 3 years.
Yeah, certainly beefed up, but still looks great. Jon Jones said Ciryl Gane is the most incomplete fighter in the top 5 of the heavyweight division, saying his biggest weakness is his ground game. We saw what Francis Ngannou did to Ciryl Gane last January. BC, do you agree with the Jon Jones assessment of Ciryl Gane?
You know, there's elements of truth in there for sure. Ciryl Gane is a kickboxer, a next-generation heavyweight, meaning he moves like a middleweight. His footwork patterns are elite. He's an incredible striker who can switch stances and mix things up. But he does have a giant gap in his game, and that's the ground game in general, but particularly in terms of the wrestling. One thing to consider here, though, on paper, is it telling you that if Jon Jones can take Gane down consistently, he's going to have his way in this matchup? Yes, if that happens, it's true. But Ciryl Gane this week said it himself. He wasn't prepared for wrestling against Francis Ngannou. He focused exclusively on striking, maybe to his own detriment, but he learned a hard lesson. He got surprised by the takedown attempts of Ngannou and the strength, which very few can match. The thing about Ciryl Gane, though, he may be 32 years old. He only has 12 pro fights up to this point. He would have a little bit more than a year since that humbling Ngannou loss to work down his takedown defense, something we didn't need to see him use against toUFC last time out, which was a striking match. It's hard for me to look at the history of Ciryl Gane and not expect him to have improved in that one key area. Is Jon right saying maybe Ciryl isn't as well-rounded as he needs to be at the end of his career? Yeah, up to this point, that's true. The question is, what is Ciryl Gane's ceiling, and how can he rebound from the only loss of his career and a big showcase of where the areas that he need to improve? I tend to believe this is a real big-time fighter who can add that to his game. That's why the scenario is very simple. Jon Jones takes Ciryl Gane down at will. He's going to have an easy night. If not, then you need to recalculate what this fight might look like on the feet over 5 rounds.
It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Will it go to the ground? Will they stay upright? It's going to be an interesting clash here, right? UFC 285 in Las Vegas. Jon Jones has won the most title fights in UFC history with 14, but will be fighting at heavyweight for the first time, BC, in his career. You know that this is something we talk about, legacy, all the time, right, in this sport. Jon Jones attempting to become the 8th UFC fighter to win a title in multiple divisions. What would a win mean for the legacy of Jon Jones, who's already one of the best to ever do it?
Look, he's already, for most people, the greatest fighter of all time. Could you count certain things against him, meaning his multi-time drug use suspensions, the all of the stuff outside of the cage, which has led to him being stripped of his title a record 3 times, yes. But those that know that right now, when we're talking about the truly elite GOATs, the GSPs, the Anderson Silvas, the Fedors, Demetrius Johnson, you get the point. Jon Jones is already a half step at least ahead of them. He wins a title in a second weight class on Saturday night, finally moving up and fulfilling his true destiny. It may be the kind of GOAT competition that is no longer a competition. Why? Because outside of that DQ loss we mentioned earlier, Jon Jones has passed every single test put in front of him from one Hall of Famer after another over a very long period of time. If he wins on Saturday, he's number 1 with a bullet, the greatest fighter ever. But if he loses, that will be the first time someone's ever done that cleanly up to this point. The stakes could not be any higher. Jon Jones is back. He's filling the Francis Ngannou-sized hole in the heavyweight division. But it comes down to your own perceptiveness based on the facts we have. Is Jon Jones coming back into a matchup that benefits him? Or is he fighting the only heavyweight that you can't mimic in practice? Somebody who's quick, can move, and do things that maybe even Jon Jones up to this point hasn't seen. This is going to be a good fight Saturday night to find out.
BC, you've put the knowledge in our minds. Now let's put the money in our pockets. Jon Jones, a -175 favorite. You'd think Jones will take this fight to the ground and dominate. Do you see it that way?
Look, I think he'll have success at times taking this fight to the ground. But I think there's certain questions that need answering that we're not focused on exclusively. What do I mean by that? Jon's return has dominated the headlines, and rightfully so in this matchup. But what about the potential improvement of Ciryl Gane since that one loss to Ngannou more than a year ago? And has Jon Jones himself evolved his game during the 3 years away, which is an eternity at the elite level, to make this seem as easy as it may seem if you're coming into this matchup believing Jon will get the takedowns? Here's one thing to note. Jon has a strong wrestling background. Hasn't used it on a consistent basis, though, inside the cage during his final run there at 205 pounds. Was more of a point fighter, counter-striking from the outside. Can Jon Jones go right back into his old style, a very physically taxing style? And if Ciryl Gane can provide some resistance in that takedown attempt, how much will that, with the larger body frame, begin to tire out a Jon Jones, who's now 35 years old, has been out of the game for 3 years? If that happens, if we see a Jon Jones who can't fight at 100% for all 25 minutes through this 5-round fight, those are the openings where the younger, fresher Ciryl Gane, particularly on the feet, of course, could provide some separation. Because this is the type of heavyweight that no one's seen before. A mover, a shaker. Yes, got exposed in that showdown against Ngannou. But if he has improved his takedown defense, this could look like one of those pick'em fights where after 5 rounds, you decide who won 3 rounds to 2. For me, I think both Jon Jones and the MMA community at large are overlooking just a bit what Ciryl Gane's true ceiling is. I believe he's going to come out ready to spoil the romanticized dreams of a Jon Jones comeback. And if you're wondering about recent history, yes, we've seen fighters win belts in 2 divisions and move up in weight to do that. But we also saw Alexander Volkanovski come up empty recently. Israel Adesanya when he went up to light heavyweight. Not as easy as it seems, particularly when you're changing your body to do so. There's a lot of questions Jon Jones needs to answer on Saturday night. If you believe that same GOAT is walking through the door, this should be no problem. I tend to believe Ciryl Gane's going to make this a much more difficult challenge.
Look at you, Ciryl Gane by decision at +320. I disagree with you on that, but that's fine. We're allowed to disagree.
It's a simple equation, Hakeem. You want to get rich or not? All right, brother. I'm talking to you right now. Okay, you want to get rich or not?
I mean, look, I'm on the Jon Jones return to the octagon, the glory, the whole story of his return coming back and winning big. That's what I'm buying into. All right, I'm buying into that. I'm also buying into you. I'm just not. I'm just not going with your pick.
Fights, big guy. yeah. That's what. Well, it's this jacket that won you over. I do love the jacket.
You're my guy, BC. Looking forward to talking with you post-fight here on CBS Sports HQ. And for all things combat, check out the award-winning Morning Kombat with Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell. They've got a full breakdown of the stacked main card at UFC 285. You can watch the series on YouTube. You can also listen to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Morning Kombat, the award-winning Morning Kombat. Download and follow today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.